Hi, welcome to my channel, Long Distance Review, the place where I look at new releases from the world of rock, punk, metal, thrash, anything that piques my interest really. I try and look at some of the smaller bands, some of the bigger bands out at the moment, and yeah, thanks for checking it out. I hope you enjoy the review. This is an album I was actually meant to put up a few weeks ago. I got the album, listened to it, and had a review ready, but I've been listening to so much other stuff recently and putting reviews up for, I had the Wonder Years and 30 Seconds to Mars, and the recent album from Palm Reader as well. So I put all them up recently, and I've kind of kept postponing putting this one up, so it is a little bit late. So I do apologise for that. Anyway, this album is by the band Monster Magnet, and the album's called Mindfucker. Great name. A little bit of history and background to Monster Magnet. They were formed in 1989 from New Jersey in USA, and their sort of genre, let's say, stoner rock, hard rock, psychedelic rock. Space rock is a term that always gets bounded around when Monster Magnet are mentioned. This will be their 10th studio album, and if I give you a quick rundown of their albums, they did Spine of God, their debut, in 1991, Super Judge in 1993, Dopes to Infinity 1995, and then released Power Trip 1998, God Says No in 2001, Monolithic Baby 2004, Four Way Diablo in 2007, Mastermind 2010, and then finally Last Patrol Cat in 2013. So this will be their 10th album, Mindfucker 2018. So 5 years is a big gap actually between Last Patrol and this. I usually run through sort of the sound of the band on each album, but there's quite a lot to go through. So I think with this band, Monster Magnet, I've always found that you can group certain albums into a different sound that they manage to purvey. And they started out on the first, say, 2 or 3 albums, certainly Spine of God and Super Judge, a real psychedelic stoner rock vibe going on. Dopes to Infinity was similar to that, but had a little bit more, let's say, mainstream appeal. I remember MTV picking up Negasonic Teenage Warhead and putting that on at the time, back in the day when MTV played music. Incredible. And so I think that was an era, like the first 3 albums could be grouped into that sort of era. It was in 1998 where they came out with the album Power Trip, was when they really sort of burst onto the mainstream of rock. And this is where I got into them. Anyone of a similar age to me, let's say mid-30s, because I'm not going to say anything else, will remember when this came out in 1998. It was given Album of the Year in Kerrang or Metal Hammer. I can't remember which one. But it was given Album of the Year, and that's when I thought, well, let's check this album out. And Power Trip's a hard rock masterpiece, but it's much more of a straightforward hard rock, let's say sleaze rock. At the time, Wyndorf was living in Las Vegas, and it was heavily influenced by Las Vegas, the excess of rock superstardom and the excess of fame. And if you check out, I'll put a clip up here of the Space Lord video, and it's just overblown. It was all so overblown and massive, this album, and it's a fantastic album, and that was really hit their commercial peak there. They followed up in 2001 with God Says No, which was a similar hard rock sort of vein, but a bit more downtrodden, I always felt, and a bit more downbeat. Monolithic Baby, I suppose you can group that in with those 2 albums, and more hard rock, straight up rock. They then veered off a little bit again in 2007 with Four Way Diablo, where they sort of went up the space rock route that they were. It was more spacey, more prog influence, and certainly by the time they got to Mastermind, the Last Patrol, the really heavily prog, space rock, psychedelic rock, especially Last Patrol, really psychedelic rock, really prog rock. So that's kind of where we left them. That was 2013, like I say, 5 years ago since their last album. It's been a long time, so it'll be really interesting to see on this album, Mindfucker, where they were going to. Would they continue going the psychedelic route, the prog route, or would they go back to the more hard rock influenced days of the late 90s? And I think as soon as this album opens up with the song Rocket Freak, you can tell instantly the sound that Wyndorf is going for. Just to go back a little bit, I usually go through the members of the band, but Monster Magnet's had a hell of a revolving door, really, and Dave Wyndorf is the main man for this. This is his band. He's a lyricist and musician, or the main musician. Although, I think Phil Caviano, Ed Mundell were long-serving members, it's really Dave Wyndorf's band. Anyway, like I was saying, Rocket Freak is the opening song on this album. And it's straight away you can see that Monster Magnet have moved away from that prog rock that they were going for on Last Patrol. And this is a much more hard rock, straight up rock. It's got a real Rolling Stones vibe to it, actually. And it has a sort of, it reminds me of the Power Trip era a little bit, but more of a, let's say, a B-side to a Power Trip song. There's nothing exceptional about it. There's nothing terrible about it. It's a good straight up rocker. They continue down that vein, but it's with the song Soul. But that's a bit more of an interesting song. I do really like the bass line in the verse that pumps along. And it's got a real sort of foot-tapping bridge to it before the chorus. And this is where I noticed Dave Wyndorf's voice more. And what I really always liked about Dave Wyndorf's vocals on these albums is he always sounds so distant and far away, like he's singing to you from the clouds, singing to you from space, like he's some sort of overlord looking over the earth. And that's what I always loved about Dave Wyndorf. He was a hard rock god in the 90s, and he always looked at like the Space Lord, you know? And he comes back to that on this album, and I love that. It's so good. Mindfucker is the first single off this album, and that's up next. Mindfucker's a good song. It was the first song I heard. The video's out on YouTube. It's a real catchy song, to be honest. It's a real sort of earworm. It'll get stuck in your head for days. And, you know, so far so good. I got to this point and thought, okay, this is all okay. But nothing's really grabbing me as such. These all sound like, you know, Power Trip, God Says No B-sides, which, you know, is okay, but it isn't Power Trip or God Says No. But luckily, the song I'm God comes in next, and this is where Monster Magnet really hit their stride on this album. I'm God's a fantastic song. It's a real slow-burning, psychedelic masterpiece. And I love when Dave Wyndorf's vocals are the focal point. And he has that relaxed drawl to his voice in the verse. And nothing beats Dave Wyndorf screaming, I'm God at you from speakers. Like I say, he has this overlord feel to him. This Space Lord element he always has to him. And to hear him shouting, I'm God, it reminds me of the Space Lord days. His vocals, his lyrics are always so interesting. They're always overblown. They sort of have this comic book language to it, and sort of cosmic metaphors he uses in his songs. And I don't know what he's talking about sometimes, I'll be honest, but I love the use of language he has, and the creative use of language he puts in his songs is so interesting. It keeps me listening no matter if I do or don't know what he's talking about. And you also got to remember that Dave Wyndorf's now 61 years old. I didn't realise until I was doing the research for this album that he's 61. It's crazy, really. I've always imagined him as this Space Lord, hard rock god. And suddenly, Dave Wyndorf's 61 years old. But to still have a good vocal range like he does nowadays, listen to the song Drowning, which is another really good song. His vocals on there are exceptional. What I will say about this album, though, is there's nothing new on there as such. They're not trying to do anything else. They're not reinventing themselves. They're not experimenting. In fact, they're all going back to the late 90s era, Monster Magnet, and, you know, harking back to the Power Trip days, to the God Says No days, to the Monolithic Baby days. Those sort of sound, the hard rock, sleaze rock sound. But it's difficult to compare that because Power Trip's such a good album, and for me, God Says No is such a good album as well. It's always going to be difficult to compare them with this because they're always going to be so much better, unfortunately. I try not to compare it, but when they're going for that sound, it's very difficult not to. But it's really good to have them back playing this music because I was getting a bit lost with the prog influence Last Patrol, I'll be honest. I know it has, you know, I know it's good and the critics really raved about it and fans love it. But for me, I've always preferred Monster Magnet when they were at their hard rock, sleaze rock element. When they, you know, I like it on this album where they are more expansive, let's say. The songs I'm God, Drowning, and the final song When the Hammer Comes Down, they're my favourite songs on the album. And I suppose they are the more prog-influenced songs. But they retain the melodies and hooks that got me interested in Monster Magnet in the first place. The shorter songs on this album, they have a lot of, a few short or punk-influenced, let's say, like the band the MC5, something along that kind of punk-influenced songs. Songs like Ejection and Want Some. They're the weaker points on this album for me. They're sort of throwaway songs. They're okay. Am I just saying that the song Brainwashed is a real really fun song, a real rockabilly fuzz to it, and it's a really cool little song. And that's sort of thrown in towards the end of the album. But like I say, I like it when Monster Magnet push themselves a bit and become this space rock band. And that's when they're at the best on this album. The final song, actually, I was going to mention, When the Hammer Comes Down. That's a really, really good song. That's one of the best on the albums. A real Sabbath-influenced riff on it. And it's got this warped effect on Wyndorf's vocals that remind me of like the Hole in the Sky song by Black Sabbath, the effect on that. A sort of very warped feel to his voice. And that's a great song, and that's when they're at their best. So overall, it's not a bad album at all. This is a good album. This is a great, straight-up, hard rock album that harks back to the 90s era. But when I want Monster Magnet, I'm always going to reach for Power Trip, or God Says No, I'm never probably going to reach for Mindfucker. And that's not saying it's a bad album. It's just saying that if they're going to do this kind of sound, I'm going to want Power Trip. And there's some good songs on it, though. There is some good songs on it. Go check them out. And, you know, support this band. They're a great band. They're a legendary band. And they won't be around forever. Like I say, Dave Wyndorf's 61 years old. He ain't going to be touring forever. He's had health issues, drug problems. You know, how long are they going to go for? I don't know. But check it out. It's out there on YouTube. Mindfucker. Yeah, decent rock album. Thanks very much for watching. I'll be back soon with another review. Thanks very much.